Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 8. After a day of taking a bit of a break, I am back, and it seems like you guys are really digging the more hands-on stuff and less the artsy-fartsy conceptually stuff. So I thought for today I'd have a look at voice leading some basic triads in more of a pop context. I think this is actually a hugely underestimated skill to have because the guitar lends itself so nicely to just sort of moving shapes around which as we checked out in lesson 1 has some artistic validity, but it can have a bit more of a sophisticated, elegant musicality to it to actually adhere to the rules of voice leading and sort of carve out a portion of any track for you to sit in and do your thing, right? There are two different ways to sort of go about voicing chords in a pop context. Either you want to include some melodic content into your otherwisely harmonic part, in which case you would follow a melody and sort of make sure the top note line makes a lot of sense and maybe is a little catchy too. And the other approach is to actually just, what I mentioned, carve out one spot for yourself to sit in that, depending on how busy the track is, can be very small or also a little bit bigger. And by applying proper voice leading, sort of make sure you don't stray beyond the limits of that too much, all right? We're going to start with the latter right now and save the former for tomorrow, maybe. Maybe we can make this a little multi-part series here. And I want to share a really simple trick with you that I use to navigate this, all right? So basically, if you're in a diatonic context, right, and you have the 7 chords, the 7 diatonic triads, there really is only 3 different ways to move within the diatonic scale, right? Because if you start on the 1, let's start with the 1. You could start on any chord, but for this example, we're going to start on the 1. If you start on the 1, let's actually make it C. You can either move by a diatonic second, a diatonic third, or a diatonic fifth. You can disregard the 7th, the 6th, and the 4th because they're really just complementary movements of the first 3. So you can either move a 5th up or down, a 3rd up or down, or a 2nd up or down. And of course, we're talking diatonic intervals, right? Always to chords that are actually one of those 7 chords, all right? And there is a real common thread to how these chords are voice-led. So if you start on the C and you actually decide to move up a 5th, right? So from C to G, you have the notes C, E, G and G, B, D. So the G, both chords have in common, that would not move, and the other 2 will have to be adjusted. We voice lead them for minimal movement, and this is an observation I made a while ago. If you move up a 5th, the 2 voices that do move actually move downwards. So if this is our C major chord, I'm using the basic closed position 2nd inversion triad here, and we move up a 5th to G, the 2 voices that do move downwards, right? And if we did the same but move a 5th downwards to the 4th degree, the 2 voices move up. This observation has really helped me get a handle on how to navigate these changes on the fly. I think it's a really useful observation. And the same can be applied to moving in thirds. If you move up a 3rd from the 1st degree to the 3rd degree, 2 notes stay the same, and one voice moves, and in the opposite direction. So if we move from the 1 to the 3 minor chord, one voice moves downwards. If we move down from the 1st degree chord to the 6th degree chord, that one voice moves upward. It's not the same voice, but it's the one voice that is moving, and it always moves in the exact opposite direction. Now, a little bit of a special case would be the chords that actually move to their diatonic neighbors, so the movement by a 2nd up or down, because moving a 2nd up actually means you're bringing all voices in the same direction and by about the same degree as the bass, which introduces what music theory calls parallels, and they often have a very undesirable sound. Now, we'll touch on some examples tomorrow where moving them parallel makes a lot of sense for getting a certain top note line, but as long as we're talking just basic voice leading, we want to avoid parallels. So we actually don't move the voices in the closest fashion possible, because that would be from the 1 to the 2 chord like this. We don't do that. We move in the opposite direction. So all 3 voices move if you move by a diatonic second. And while the root moves up, all 3 voices move down. And likewise, if you move down a minor diatonic second to the 7th degree, all 3 voices move up. Not really a chord you find a lot in a pop context, you know, unless you maybe use it to actually represent a 5/7 chord, but there we go. So those are all the movements you can make. Again, I repeat, 5th down, 5th up, 3rd down, up, 3rd down, and the 2nd up, and the 2nd down. Now you can do that starting on any chord. This is just starting on the 1. You can start on the 2nd degree, on the 3rd degree, on the 4th degree. Doesn't matter. These basic observations as to how the voices move and in which directions will always be the same. All right? And then, of course, you also got to make sure you do this for all the inversions, right? Because every triad on the guitar has 3 inversions, just like it does on any other instrument. But on the guitar, it is also string set specific what the shapes look like, right? So your basic major triads would be on the D, G, B string set, and on the G, B, E string set, they would look right? And you can apply these movements starting on any of these. So if I don't choose this C as my starting point, but this C, the same still applies. If I move up a 5th, it's like this. If I move down a 5th, like this. And the same can be applied to all the others. Now, if you do the math on this, which I advise you not to do, it sounds like a mind-boggling amount of combinations and movements you sort of have to learn by heart. But let me tell you, it's not actually about learning all of this by heart. It's about sort of getting a feel and getting a sense of how the voices move. And you'll be doing this by on instinct very quickly. So if you actually have a super basic progression like 1, 5, 6, 4, for example, that is how I would maneuver this. Depending on the track I'm playing in, I sort of choose my little niche, my sonic niche where I want to be, and I choose an inversion to fit that. For example, this one, right? And then I know I'm moving up a 5th, so my voices are moving down, right? Then I'm moving from the 5th up to the 6th, its direct neighbor, so all my voices are again moving down. Sorry to this one, let me do that again. And then from this one, I'm moving a 3rd down to the 4th degree, so my one voice that is changing is going up. So we have... And I could have done the same starting in this inversion, for example, right up here. Right? I can do it anywhere. All right? That's the basic idea. Little hack how to navigate these diatonic triads in close position. We're also going to look at these in a spread as spread voicings, or as drop 2 triads, as I like to call them a lot. And yeah, kind of try to get into that. It'll help you hugely maneuver any kind of diatonic progressions on the spot. And of course, these concepts can also be applied to non-diatonic progressions. But we got to start somewhere, right? Have fun with this. See you tomorrow for the next part of this little mini series.